Hello, I'm Odin, and today I'm going to make what might be one of the easiest cosplays from Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I'm going to make a Flag Smasher mask. I want a mask that'll fit me, so I'm going to start with a plaster cast of me. Making a pattern is pretty easy. Remember that you can add things to change the basic shape, so I taped some foam over the mouth to make it all smooth. Wrap what you want your pattern to fit with aluminum foil. Then cover the foil with duct tape. Apply the tape as neatly as you can. Then draw out what you want to make with a permanent marker. Your lines are going to represent the seams when you put it back together. I only draw out one side because I can flip the left side pattern over to make the right side pieces. I also add in all of these alignment marks. They're the little cross lines on the seams. So I just want to point out that it is my intention to make this simple. There's a lot more going on with the mask than I've just got drawn here. There's a lot, there's brow pieces, there's extra like anger lines that are kind of built into the mask that are gonna be kind of rough to pull off subtly with foam. So I'm gonna make this fairly simple so it's easy to make. I hope. Remove the foil pattern and cut it up on the seam marks. Knowing where to make the seams isn't always apparent while drawing them out. The eye, that's the complicated part. So this is all the easy stuff. Cheek, chin, mouth, eye, that's easy. Head's a great big dome, that's easy. Under piece of the nose here, that's pretty easy. This part. Doesn't want to be cut, so it'll lay flat. I ended up cutting right where the nose connects to the brow, you know, where wrinkles typically form on someone's face. Yeah, that's it. That's where the line needs to be. Okay. I like to copy my foil patterns over onto some cardboard because cardboard is less likely to deform when I'm using it multiple times. I cut out my pattern parts again, and then use a pattern notcher to cut out each of the alignment marks. I traced 2 copies of each pattern onto some 4mm foam. I can use pencil on this light-colored HD foam. My habit is to flip the pattern over for the second part. That way I know which is on the left and which part is on the right side. That's all the parts. I love saying stuff like that, but I never use it. So I've got all my parts cut out. In order to glue these together better, I want to curve the parts that go across the top of the head because that's got more of a concave shape. It's more of a dome shape, right? The sides of the face, those can stay flat. The sides of the nose, those I think the bottom of the nose can stay flat. These will need to be curved. These will need to be compound curved, and these need to be compound curved. That's easy to do. I warm up the foam pieces with a heat gun and mash them over my planishing stake. This forces a compound curve into all of the flat pieces, and these curved parts will fit my head so much better than a bunch of flat pieces. It's easy to see the alignment marks here in this shot. They're just right along the edge. Now I did also decide to curve just the top part of the side of the face. I glued the parts together with contact cement, applying cement to both sides of each seam. Because this is just 4mm foam being glued edge to edge, I applied 2 coats of contact cement. That'll make each seam a lot stronger. You can see when the cement is mostly dry, and that's when it will stick. Glue the parts together, lining up the alignment marks as you go. Now you may have to pull one piece a little more to get them to all line up and fit. And when you do that, that's what gets all the correct curves on the otherwise flat pieces of your EVA foam. Gluing the nose together is tricky. It's a small piece with lots of shapes, and gluing it in last on the mask made the most sense to me because I could keep the mouth straight that way. Now I don't like how flat the chin looked when I was done, even though it's kind of supposed to be flat. So I cut a couple of tiny darts into the chin, and then when I glue them back shut, I get a slight curve on the edge of the chin, which looks a lot better to me. I've kept it pretty simple so far, but I do want to cover the seams. There's a number of different products I've used in the past to do that, but I've got something new that I'm gonna try today. Prop Monkey Studios sent me some gap filler. So this is a in progress product. This is actually a product test. I've never used this before, and I thought I'd give it a shot here. It says to be fast drying. That's the key for me, is I want this to be fast drying. What does that mean? I don't know. Hopefully it'll be dry today. Prop Monkey Studios is saying the intent was to make a gap filler that was more professional than what was being used now for EVA foam. My goals are pretty ambitious, and I think I have some winners. Please give my products a try and rate them for me. So I've actually got a box here of 5 different batches, because this is completely product testing. This isn't available at all. So I'm going to give this particular product, which is batch 266, a shot. And I was told that it was easiest to spread with a palette knife. Well, that's very, very thin. And the things that Prop Monkey Studios wanted to know was, how well did it blend? How well did it sand? Did it need to be sanded? Yeah, I can see why a palette knife is ideal. And honestly, it is fast drying. The thin stuff was pretty dry even before I was done working on all of the seams. I think my palette knife skills can improve, but so far, so good. Gap filler is a tougher filler than the Alex Fast Dry I typically use. I can use a pretty aggressive sandpaper on it. It didn't take too long to get it all sanded down. Something I should do in the future is cover the whole thing in a thin coat of gap filler. That way the texture will be consistent over the whole prop. Now, one thing I do like is the color. This batch is green, and it reminds me a lot of Ye Old Squadron putty, which I used a ton of when I was building all sorts of plastic bottles back in the day. And so far, I like gap filler. It sands way easier than quick seal, and it's tougher than flexible spackle. While the filler was drying, I made a template for the triangle grid that goes over the mouth. I only made one side again, because I can flip it over and trace both sides. Just line up the template edge with the seam of the mouth. I am using a couple of different blades to cut out the triangles. The number 16 blade is perfect for the short edge, and a sharp number 11 blade does a really good job on the long sides of the triangles. All right, that works. I can breeze right through that, yeah. Okay, good. Some elastic I'm planning to use for the straps. It's 3/4 of an inch wider. So, yeah, okay. 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4. All right. So a little more than 4. So what are these? This is black poster board. What I want to do with this is glue it on the inside where I'm going to cut out for the straps. That way it's got some reinforcement and the elastic doesn't just pull on the foam and make the holes open up in a weird way. So that's all these are, reinforcement. I applied just one coat of contact cement and glued the poster board pieces in place. And then I cut out the holes for the straps to go through. I have them marked on the pattern so it's easy to know where they go. Joe made a vector graphic of the Flag Smashers logo. I printed it out at 110% size because that looked more like the right size for the mask that I made. And that allows me to trace the logo right onto the mask and keep the shapes correct. I could freehand this drawing, but I think having a pattern will help a lot. So I want to go directly into painting it because I can with the Plaid FX paints. I don't have to spray it with Plastidip first. But I have a concern that the red handprint is going to give me trouble because of the green putty. That's not something I thought about when I started puttying this, that I was going to have a difference in tone, and that's probably going to bleed through a layer of red paint, because that's the type of stuff that red paint does. So what I'm going to try to do first is lay down a layer of orange paint. And hopefully the orange will cover better than the red paint does and give me a base that I can then go back and cover with red. All I want to do is overpaint the lines that I had put on with the red color and then come back with black and actually get what I want, because black will cover everything, right? It only took 2 coats of orange paint to mostly cover up the green of the putty. So you may be asking a pretty good question. which, you know, wouldn't it make more sense to just paint the mask black and then paint a red handprint on it? Well, it would, if I had paints that would actually work that way. The acrylics that I'm using, the red will never cover over black. The best I'll get isn't a red color, it'll be a brick color. And that isn't really what I want. I mean, it's not the best red, but I do want a good red. So what I want to do instead is paint the lighter colors first. I'm putting some orange on as a base layer for the red to help make the red a little richer and to help compensate for the green putty so I don't get that really kind of splotchy look. So I'll paint a big area that's red first, and then since I can still see the pencil lines, I'll come back with black and paint the black around the red. That way the red will be bright and the black will be where I want it. And it took just one coat of red to cover over everything. Well, 1.5. I went over a couple of spots before I stopped. Now I can see the pencil lines mostly. I see the indents almost as much as I see the actual pencil line. But it's still good enough that I can get the black paint right where I want it. I did make a mistake when drawing on the globe portion. I didn't have it sitting exactly right the first time. So now I'm navigating a double line drawing, and I need to be sure that I'm actually on the correct line, because what I want is a round globe and not an egg, because this is not an egg smasher mask from the Howard the Duck planet. Using the paper cutout again to help guide the paint worked really well for me. I want to give this a chance to dry, and then I'll go back and finish up the globe inside. But I'm really afraid that if I keep painting around this and laying it down and picking it up, I'm going to print black paint onto the red, and there's no recovering from that. So give this a chance to dry, and then I'll finish it. All right, I gave it a chance to dry, and now that I can touch it and not smear paint, I'm going to finish putting the world inside of the face here. Because if you look at the Flag Smasher logo, this is Africa and Europe inside, well, she's got a left hand, inside the handprint. Which, by the way, if you look specifically at the different masks, she's got a left hand. A lot of the other guys have a right hand. So there's actually a difference in the masks, but you can't change the world, right? So even though this is a left hand, Africa is still where it belongs. And on the right-handed mask, Africa is still over here where it belongs on the globe. They don't flop the world back and forth, they just change which hand it is, which is kind of cool because you can have whatever decoration you want. You're not locked into just this one over the eye. You can do it however you want because apparently that's what they do. I traced the east coast of Africa onto the globe portion. Now this is a very simplified artistic rendition of the planet. It's not crazy accurate, which is nice because that means I don't need to be. I was also mindful to paint all the sides of the holes. I don't want the gray foam peeking out from inside of one of the breathing holes, or from around the edges of the back. Once all the paint is dried again, I sealed the mask with some Mod Podge matte, because in the show, the masks are not shiny. I just need to wait for this to dry again. So my plan has always been to use real elastic straps, because that's what it looks like they have in the show. I had backed the cutouts with a little bit of black poster board because that would give a little extra strength for the strap. It wouldn't deform the foam, at least not nearly as quickly. Hopefully I'm not going to be putting a lot of stress on this elastic strap, so it won't be that big of a deal, but it's going to work just fine. So I've got plenty of strap, and I just happen to have 3 plastic buckles left over from a headlight that I tore apart a while ago. So that gives me the pieces I need to sew the straps for this guy. I'm going to need 14 inches to go from here to here, and about 5.5 to go from here down to there, plus the extra bits that I need to make the buckles work. I loop the elastic around the center of the buckle and then sew it together. And this is done on all 3 straps. Now I feed the strap through its hole with the buckle coming from the inside of the mask. Then weave the elastic back through the buckle, and you have straps that can be adjusted for different sizes. I cut each of the side straps to about 7.5 inches, and then sew the ends together to make one full strap that goes across the back of the head. And what I wanted to do was sew a loop onto the end of the top strap so it could slide around, but I cut the extra off before I had tried it on.
That should come down the head more. Well, wouldn't you know it, I made that one too short. That back strap could certainly handle being a little bit longer. Well, that sucks. I can make it longer. I have to undo it and then sew it in permanently.
Undo the seam, which was sewn back and forth a few times, and then sew the end of the top strap right over the connection of the two side straps.
So what's the difference? It's not pulling against my forehead now. It's more across here. It's more equal with the bands, and I think it'll actually stay here. It feels different. It's less constrictive on my face. It's not up against my forehead. It still rides up. But hey, I got it working.
Most of the materials I used for this project I already had in the shop. I put a part list in the description.
Out of all the different Marvel villain cosplays, this one's probably one of the easiest. And what's nice is it's simple, right? You've got a mask with the iconic handprint and street clothes. Done. I don't need anything else. I get this with 5 of my friends, and I can pose with all the Captain America cosplayers that I see at a con, right? And for the time being, you could wear a mask underneath it if you wanted to, but I've got a Flag Smasher mask, and I'm actually pretty happy I got this done. Now, you can make your own Flag Smasher mask, because the pattern that I made during this video, I've made a file out of that. You can download it. There's a link in the description. That's free. Make yourself a Flag Smasher mask if you want to. Make them for your friends if you want to. And the fun thing is you can personalize them. The handprint that I have here, this left hand handprint, this is specifically Carly's mask. She's got the left hand with Africa, and that's the way her handprint is on her mask. All the Flag Smashers have hands in different places on the masks, if you look at them, especially like the truck fight scene that's in episode 2. You can see them very plainly that some guys have right hands on their faces, some people have left hands on their faces, but the globe is always the same. It's always the Atlantic Ocean and Africa in the globe portions. That doesn't change, but the orientation to the hand does. Just something to keep in mind. Now there's one other major detail, minor, tiny little detail, but kind of big, and I'm sure some of you who were watching this were trying to call it out, but I don't want to do it. If you look closely at the masks, it has a series of dots. It's covered in a texture, in a grid of little tiny dots, little raised dots over the whole mask. It looks really cool. I don't want to sit here and, the only thing I can think of is super glue. I don't want to sit here and do dots of super glue over the whole thing, because that should work. A gelled super glue that doesn't flatten out when it dries, that should work for making the raised dots over the whole mask. But that's another couple of hours of work with a good possibility of messing up the grid. And that's more my fear. I would be afraid of having more of a wavy line, more of a television static instead of a really fine, neat and orderly grid on the mask. So I'm really happy with where I've got it right now, and I think this would totally work with a bunch of friends and taking pictures with any Captain America cosplay you find anywhere. Everyone will have a good time, so I'm fine not having the texture. But if you want the texture, put the texture on there, because you know what? There are lots of different ways you can make a Flag Smasher mask from the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. But this is how Odin makes.
Now there's always a joke about waiting for glue to dry, and if I had a sponsor for this video, I could have put that right here. Come on, open up. It's all dried shut. Oh wow, that's really, there it goes. That's really glued shut. I want to thank Daniel Lewis, Cpt.Seabone, and all of my Patreon supporters. My Patreon support is the #1 thing that makes this show possible. If you like the video, don't forget to subscribe. Have an idea for something for me to make? Please leave a comment below. And if you make any of these projects, you can send me a picture.